The wind carried the scent of dust and grief across the plains, curling around Clara Monroe as she knelt beside the shallow grave. Her hands, cracked from work too heavy for a woman of 19, trembled as she pressed the last mound of dirt flat with her palm. It was all she could offer her mother now, a resting place shaded by a lone juniper and marked with a simple cross of cedar branches. Behind her, the cries of her youngest brother, little Samuel, cut through the stillness, while her sister Ella clutched him close, eyes wide with a fear she was too young to name. Jacob, the oldest boy at 12, stood stiffly, trying to keep his face hard, but tears streaked his dusty cheeks. Clara looked at them, these three fragile souls who had no one but her, and felt the weight of the world settling on her shoulders. She had promised her mother she would keep them safe, but promises in the West had a way of turning to dust faster than footprints on a windy trail. The sun sank lower, bleeding crimson across the sky, and with it came a silence too sharp to be natural. Clara stiffened. She heard it then, the faint jingle of spurs, the heavy tread of boots on dry earth. Someone was coming. She rose to her feet, pulling Jacob behind her, as instinct guided her hand to the old rifle leaning against the juniper. Her heart hammered in her chest, not only with fear, but with the bitter knowledge that trouble always came looking for the weak, and right now, they were as defenseless as rabbits caught in open ground. A shadow stretched long across the ridge. "Evening, Miss Monroe," came a voice, deep and edged with smug amusement. "I hear your pa left debts he couldn't pay. Seems those debts are mine now." The name Silas Boone cut through her like a knife. A gambler, a land thief, and a man whose cruelty was whispered about in every saloon from here to Abilene. Boone wasn't here by chance. He had come to claim what he thought belonged to him, her family's homestead, their meager land, and maybe more. Clara tightened her grip on the rifle, her breath sharp in her throat, and knew in that moment that their world had changed forever. By morning, Boone's men rode in with papers stamped and signed, claiming her father's losses. Clara tried to fight, but words weighed little against ink and guns. The Monroes were forced from their home, left wandering the dirt road with only what they could carry. Hunger gnawed at their bellies. Dust coated their throats. Clara held her siblings close, but inside she burned with fury. Boone's smirk haunted her, his warning echoing like a rattler's rattle. "You'll bend or you'll break, girl. Don't stand in my way." It was in that lowest hour they stumbled upon Colton Hayes, a wealthy rancher, riding his bay stallion along the ridge. Colton was a man carved from the land itself, broad-shouldered, his face weathered, eyes steady as steel. He spotted the ragged children first, then Clara's defiant stance with the rifle, and something softened in his gaze. Without asking, he swung down, offering water and food. Clara distrusted kindness. Out here, kindness often came with a price, but desperation made her accept. Around the fire that night, Colton spoke little, but when Jacob asked if he was rich, Colton only shrugged. "Got more than most. Doesn't mean it makes me better." Colton told them he knew Boone, knew the ruin the man left behind. "You've got two choices," he said, his voice like gravel. "Hide, and Boone will grind you into dust. Or fight, and you'll need help." Clara bristled at the thought of relying on anyone, yet when she looked at Samuel's thin face, she knew pride wouldn't feed them, nor keep them alive. With reluctant nod, she accepted Colton's offer of shelter at his ranch. Life on Colton's land was no easy mercy. Dawn meant chores that left Clara's muscles burning and her hands raw. Ella learned to gather eggs and mend torn shirts. Jacob struggled through lessons of roping and riding, and even little Samuel toddled after ranch hands, clinging to their patience. Slowly, the Monroes began to stitch themselves into the fabric of the Hayes Ranch. Clara found herself drawn to Colton's quiet strength. He carried grief of his own, a wife lost years ago, no children left behind, but he bore it without complaint. At night, when the firelight painted his face in gold, Clara felt the stirrings of something dangerous, something tender she could not afford. But Boone had not forgotten her. Weeks later, his men rode onto the ranch, rifles across their saddles, demanding Colton turn the Monroes over. "That girl owes me more than land," Boone sneered. "She owes me obedience." Colton's answer was simple. He stood between Boone and Clara, hand resting on the revolver at his hip. Tension hung thick as smoke until Boone spat in the dirt and rode off, promising this wasn't the end. The air that night was heavy with storm, and Clara knew war had been declared. From then on, the ranch was never at peace. Fence lines were cut, cattle stampeded, water poisoned. Boone's shadow stretched long, his cruelty bleeding into every day. Clara fought to keep her siblings safe, but each trial seemed to chip away at their fragile security. Trust wavered when one of Colton's own ranch hands betrayed them, feeding Boone information in exchange for coin. That betrayal led to an ambush on the trail, and Jacob took a bullet through the shoulder, nearly dying in Clara's arms. As she pressed her hands to his wound, she cried out to God, to her dead parents, to anyone who might listen, but the sky stayed silent. Despair wrapped its claws around her. That night, Clara broke. She confessed to Colton she wasn't strong enough, that Boone had already won. Colton's eyes, steady and dark, searched hers. Strength ain't about never breaking, Clara. It's about standing back up when you do. But the choice is yours. It was the lowest point, when the fire seemed gone from her spirit and the future no longer seemed worth chasing. Then came Boone's final blow. He kidnapped Ella and Samuel from the creek, leaving behind a note in the dirt. Trade yourself for them, or watch them die. Clara's blood turned to ice. Colton urged caution, but Clara knew Boone would never release them unless she went. Love for her siblings gave her courage Steele couldn't. Against Colton's protests, she rode out into the night, rifle slung across her back, determination burning hotter than fear. The canyon loomed dark when she arrived, torches flickering along the walls. Boone waited with his men, Ella and Samuel tied at his feet. His smile was all venom. You should have been, girl. Clara stood tall, meeting his eyes with a fire he had never expected. And you should have counted on me fighting. The standoff crackled with tension. Boone raised his revolver. Clara lifted her rifle. In that heartbeat of silence, Colton's voice rang out from the ridge as his men charged down, guns blazing. Chaos erupted, bullets sparking off stone. Clara darted forward, cutting the ropes on her siblings even as Boone lunged. They grappled in the dirt, his hand crushing her wrist, her rifle tumbling away. Boone's breath was foul, his strength monstrous. Just as his knife pressed against her throat, Clara found a rock, swung with every ounce of fury and grief, and shattered his hold. Boone fell back, cursing, and Colton's bullet ended it. When the dust settled, the canyon echoed with the cries of the defeated. Boone lay still, his reign of cruelty ended. Clara clutched Ella and Samuel, tears streaming freely, while Jacob, pale but alive, rode in with Colton. The family was whole again. At dawn, the sun rose golden over the plains, casting long light over the Hayes Ranch. Clara stood with Colton on the porch, watching her siblings chase each other through the grass. Peace had returned, hard-earned and precious. She looked at Colton, gratitude and something deeper shining in her eyes. He touched his hat, a quiet promise passing between them. The West had taken much, but it had also given a second chance, a family reforged in fire. And so the tale closed not with sorrow, but with hope, as the Monroes and Colton Hayes carved a new future together, their scars proof of survival, their love a testament to resilience. Remember this, traveler on life's long road. The strongest hearts are forged in flame. The truest bonds are born of pain.